Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's time for Total CSDM Readiness in just 5 weeks from Windward Consulting Group, featuring Rowe Price.
Hey everybody, can y'all hear me all right? Awesome. I'm Charles Simons. I'm with Windward Consulting. I'm a VP there. I've been there for a little over 13 years. Windward is a elite ServiceNow partner, focusing majorly in the operations management space. So do a lot of work in operations management and CMDB. I'm joined today with my friend Bill Heidel from Rowe. We've worked on a few projects together, but what we want to do is kind of overview a project that we did, really focusing on CSDM and how we can leverage that on an environment that they started 13 plus years ago-ish.
Yeah, something
but
like
anyway,
that.
I have Bill Heidel, VP and Senior Infrastructure and Operations Manager.
Wow, I'm impressed. You got it right. Hello, everyone. How's the ServiceNow conference treating you? Well, everybody happy? My name is Bill Heidel. As Charles mentioned, I am the Senior Infrastructure Operations Manager for Rowe Price and Technology. I have over 20 years with Rowe Price and about 30 in the industry. It's my pleasure working with Rowe Price, but before them, I've also worked with Fortune 5 companies that most of you would have heard about in the finance and banking industry. Do you want to hit the first slide? I'll give a little bit about Rowe Price. Oh, he's got it up there for me already. So, a little bit about Rowe Price, who we are. We're a global asset manager who've been in business for over 85 years, starting in 1937. Right? We're a publicly owned company with substantial employee ownership, almost 1.3 trillion in assets under management now. We carry no outstanding long-term debt, and we maintain substantial cash-ready reserves. We have over 7,000 employees. A large portion of that is in our IT environment. And we're in 16 countries right now with a local presence. We're an independent investment organization who specializes in making sure that your plans, whether they're institutional, retirement plan services, as an individual investor, come to its fruition with confidence. So thanks, Charles, for the opportunity today to share a bit.
All right, very good. So, as I stated, Bill's been with ServiceNow in his journey for a number of years. So, being an early adopter, Bill's been a big innovator with using the platform. So one of the things that they had done is a lot of customization in order to drive, service alignment. So how does the infrastructure support the business operations? So he created a lot of these custom tables and extensions to his existing CMDB to provide that feature. So fast forward 12 years, right? And now we've got the CSDM model out, and he's worked himself kind of into a corner, right? Being an innovator, working ahead of that. So maybe, Bill, you could describe a little bit about what your organization is trying to accomplish this year.
Sure. Let me ask a question first. How many of you would consider yourselves an early adopter of ServiceNow? Can I get a show of hands? All right, so I got some people out there that are brothers and sisters who are going to understand where I started, right? We started at Rowe Price really for our incident and problem management. And doing that, we had a highly customizable process for handling that. And ServiceNow was a great partner that allowed us to put all of those customizations in and automate those. Challenge is that put us on a train track, right? And some trajectories that as things developed over the year, ServiceNow and the product started to drift off towards standards, and here we had these customizations. The wider that gap got between us, the more expensive every single upgrade that we did cost us in regression testing, right? As well as taking new features. Some things we prohibited ourselves in, and when we really got to our APM applications and our enterprise architects really started doing some business process mapping for all of our applications, it became very difficult for us to match our technical services and our service mappings to the individual business mappings that we had done. Right? Lo and behold, right, our need to get out there in front, we said, we need to get this track back on track, or this train back on track, and we need to get us aligned to the standards that ServiceNow is going to develop under, so that as soon as their features come out, we can take advantage of that and realize value.
So one of the things, Bill, is you guys were using an in-house built APM solution, right? So
Correct.
in addition, you know, I know within the latest releases, APM's just come out within ServiceNow, but again, you know, Bill's team's innovated beyond or ahead, right? And really trying to work to how do we best integrate what the business is using today in order to build, to provide that solution across the organization.
Absolutely.
So if you think about Windward ourselves, we're again an elite partner. You know, our focus, as I said, is in that operations management space. As we approach this project, and I'm sure you've all heard this, you know, 85% of all CMDB projects fail, but I'm bringing it up because it kind of has some context here. So Bill called us a bit in a hurry. He had undergone at least one start, if not two starts to this project of trying to getting himself aligned to CSDM. Bill, maybe can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, some of you have already undertaken this exact same effort, right? This stat of 85% of CMDB projects that fail is not one that's made up, right? You can identify with that off the bat. It'd be extremely difficult to get things to where you want it to be. We actually engaged with 2 previous partners of ServiceNow beforehand to help us, very simply stated, but not simply accomplished, map out exactly where we were to where we need to be and develop that bridge plan, right? How do we get there? Those both failed. And the last one, right before we contacted Windward, literally got stuck in the middle of it. And they basically said, well, we can't go any further from here. I think we have to kind of depart ways. As you might imagine, leaves us in a little bit of a quandary with our goals, and enter Windward. Right, they were someone that we've had relationships with before. We stayed in touch over a couple of years with them, and they were able to swoop in, and Charles is going to share a little bit more about the exact process that they actually use to help us.
Yeah, so yeah, really the goal of our talk today is really kind of walk you through what we did in that project. So how do we approach the problem? I want you guys to come away with an understanding of where there's value in the CSDM, how it might align to your business value and what you're working on, and regardless of where you start, you know, how you can apply and help your organization move that forward. So those are our goals for today. So Bill, if you talk about a little bit about the priorities, about what we needed to accomplish in completion of this project.
Yeah, absolutely. As we continued our transformation in the organization, we needed our partner to be able to work with our technical service management areas so that everything would align and work well together. That alignment continued all the way through our technical services to our business process mappings, as I mentioned. And we really had to put a priority on our mapping and discoveries. Much like you, we had a number of great maps already in process, but we had this wax buildup right over time, a lot of stale type CIs and other things that were going on with those mappings where we created them at a certain period of time and they just weren't current. That sort of leads into some of those challenges for us, right? Where we really weren't able to align to the business. The knowledge of us having actual knowledge versus, or legacy knowledge from our administrators to really, can we instrument something and measure it, was important to us. And then all of that is how do we just reduce the expenses associated with those upgrades and all that regression testing.
Thank you. So again, as we're looking at, you know, you guys have been having conversations around the CMDB, like what makes the common service data model any different, or why should you care? Why is it important to you? So really the key thing that's been brought out now is you can bring in other areas of the business that you have that are working on. So if you look at this model that's shown ahead, you can bring in your build plans, so your SDLC components, so what platforms and patterns that you're deploying into the environment. You can make that a part of the build. You can look at your architecture teams from a design perspective. You can start mapping out your application portfolios within the tool itself and set life cycles. So one of the big changes that has been added, at least in the latest set of releases, is really the concept of a life cycle. So that's going to allow you to add business capability, have life cycle to a business capability, add applications, manage that over time, right? Both for your application support teams, your build teams that are building, and even to your business, right? So if you think about what products are you selling to your customer, so that a customer service front end, how are you defining the SLAs for those services that you're offering? And then how do I translate that back to my operations? Say you sold something with a gold plan or a silver plan, and they have different SLI requirements to them. How are you mapping that back to the actual infrastructure that supports it? This model allows that to happen across the business. So, one of the things that ServiceNow does provide, and I think it's very important and very valuable, is if you think about the foundation, crawl, walk, run approach. So even going into this project of trying to help Bill out, we mapped out through this project, here's your crawl stage, here's your walk stage, here's your run stage. And we built reporting that aligned to that. We built outcomes that were aligned to that. So it really helps you set prioritization for what you can bring value to the organization and how quickly. So, starting with that foundational data and moving through. I'm not going to walk through every single one of them, but it is important that even related to your CMDB and your CSDM journey, this is all mapped out for you in process that you can work with a ServiceNow partner to drive you through to get to these outcomes. So if I think about the engagement model, so how did Windward approach Bill's problem? We started out really with an assessment, right? And that assessment really comes out of a few things. There's some things that ServiceNow even provides. So there's a bunch of scripts that we can run on the back end and give you run against your existing state. So those scripts really pull out how many duplicates you have. And this is looking at your core of your CMDB and also looking at customizations. So what is the state of them today? How many duplicate CIs that you might have? What are the sources for those? What customizations have you put in place? And also what dependencies and workflows might rely on those customizations that you've actually built. So the outcome of that is really it's a huge spreadsheet. It gives you all the data related to what is going on in your CMDB, where the breakdowns are, where the gaps are, where the overlays are. And we can use that as foundational data to start going into workshops and talking with the team. So the key thing here is in the workshops, we really work as a mediator. Like one of the things that's important about CSDM is it's cross-functional within your organization. It's not just your IT organization. You've got business stakeholders. You might have procurement stakeholders, asset managers, across the board. So the key thing is in those workshops, we're defining these models and bringing those individuals together so that we can come with a common lexicon and everybody can agree on what data is important, who are the data owners, what measures we're going to have, and where the outcomes are. At the end, we end up with a roadmap that's aligned, and what we do is build that into epics and themes such that it's actual work product coming out. So you have a specific roadmap with work efforts that are prioritized and built in a format that can actually deliver work. Bill, any commentary on the process that we went through?
No, I think you got it. And one thing that I would share with everybody is don't sleep on the process. Right? A lot of people see a multi-step process and they try to go from 1 to 5 in that multi-step, right? Make sure, and one of the things that Windward brought to us and was able to help us is to go through all this, make sure it was part of your documentation, it was extensible, and it was usable for us, not only during that to accomplish our goals, but every subsequent time we now look at design criteria.
All right. So just kind of walking through a little bit, as I described before, I just have a single slide that talks about each one of these, the assessments that we do, running these scans onto your system, again, pulling out these spreadsheets and data directly out of your platform. The very interesting thing here is if you go to the ServiceNow training site, look at data foundations training and CMDB training, there's a lot of the information that's here, that's at the site. It's trainable, it's all there so you can get understanding of it. I really invite you guys to do that because having a good understanding of what those data foundations are within the CMDB and CSDM is key for your organization. And if you're leading the efforts or driving the change within the teams, it's very helpful if you have a good sense of what those are. So as I said, as we come out in those workshops, having a common language or lexicon and be able to have these conversations with those team members and understanding, okay, for the platform services team or for the mobile team, here's the data elements that matter to you and what's important for you to maintain keep abreast of and manage. Lastly, we have don't necessarily need to do data modeling workshops, but we do have a process to follow that, right? To tie you through from the defined approach all the way through what you're going to do from building your dashboards to support it. Again, a lot of emphasis on what's available in the ServiceNow the training. That there are also modules that can be loaded to extend this. So in some cases where you might be using the older model data around CSDM and you're moving to 4.0, you can load a module within ServiceNow that'll map that stuff for you inside and hold on to that. So it'll put new data going into one section, it'll stick it in the new location as well as you're working through that roadmap. So there's a lot of options available to you depending on where you are on that journey to get moving. And last, here's just an overview of a service map, like per se, of what that data model might look like for a particular a SaaS application. And if you see the various colors there represent the different teams that might be focused, whether they're technical services, consumer focused with your customer-facing teams or your architecture groups. ServiceNow has continued to build on this, using this model. As you see, APM just came out as a new solution, and depending heavily on this, the additions that were added into CSDM 4.0 as well. So this is actually an overview of our output that we provided. So these are the recommendations that we provided to T-Rowe. It's a very high level, so it's a 1,000-foot view, but if you see, there's really kind of 4 key areas that we walk through. One of them is just core in their data, right? They have discovery. They're importing data from Microsoft. They're have 3 or 4 other integrations that are all driving data, but they have a lot of stale CIs. They got a lot of duplicate CIs. There's a lot of things that are going on in the background. So we built stories and plans to go address those. So do I need to update your IRE engine? We need to change the way we're integrating and pulling data in. So that CMDB area is really just focused on the discovery methods. The second one is really that core mapping, which is what brought us to the table with Bill to begin with. How does he take that APM data from that custom solution and map it back into the new construct for CSDM 4.0? Integration, as we spoke about, how are we going to integrate best with the tools, the APM solution and others? And then really the rest of them were really around process. How can he take better advantage of the data that he does have in the CMDB to improve his incident management process, to improve his change management process? So we made recommendations throughout the project, all related to these various items. And then obviously stories and all of that came out from the bottom end. Bill, do you have any other comments around how we...
Great stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have all the super specifics in here, nor the time to cover it, so you'll have to do the work yourself, or work through.
So, I know we only have a few minutes left. I don't know if you guys had any questions or want to carry things on. I mean, one of the things that's most important, and again, these things are available in the data foundations. They have built-in reporting that's tied to crawl, that's tied to walk, and tied to run. You could customize these to yourself to get the output that you're looking for, but what's most important is as we're on these journeys, we built all these dashboards for Bill's team, and they're using that as they implement and work through this to show their progress in driving to the answer, right? Because I think, as even our last speaker said, the CMDB is not built in a day, and you got to keep on maintaining it. So, anyway, nonetheless, so our project holistically, evaluation, assessment, roadmap, and then built the foundations of those dashboards so they can measure their success in moving forward. Bill, do you have any last words?
Just a thank you to you publicly, too. You and Windward just came in, rescued this project for where we need to be, gave us the railroad track to get that train back on the right course, and really set us up for the future. And we appreciate partners like you that we work well with.
Well, thank you. Windward is booth 310. I invite you all to come stop by and visit if you have any more questions. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.